Welcome to the Ludum Dare 44 Keynote. So I'm Ajay Ramachandran. I'm a high school student who has been participating in Ludum Dare for the past 14 events. I started participating in Ludum Dare right from when I started learning programming, so I've used Ludum Dare as a learning ground throughout my competitions. I do solo competitions and mainly do the programming, as I'm not very much of an artist. I originally learned about Ludum Dare through a great YouTube channel called The Churno, where I originally learned most of my Java programming skills I still use today in my Ludum Dare projects. So in this keynote, I'm going to explain some of the strategies I use to complete Ludum Dare successfully, and I'm going to explain some of the facets of Ludum Dare that I don't believe are well understood. For example, the coolness system, and some of the other quirks about the rating system. So here are my basic steps to complete a Ludum Dare successfully. So you have to make as many ideas as possible when you're brainstorming initially. I usually dedicate 1, 2, sometimes even 3 hours just to making the ideas, because I find the more ideas I have, the better I'm prepared for if something bad happens. Because if later in the competition you realize that your idea is way too overscoped or it's just infeasible with your knowledge set, then you have to be ready to switch to another idea. And sometimes I find I make multiple different ideas and I end up just merging some of the best parts of each of them. So that's why I think it's best to spend a lot of time thinking of the different possible ideas. And if you are lost, I find very useful to look at the Twitter page for Ludum Dare. Mike will release an image along with the theme. So I find those images sometimes help in inspiring me to making ideas. Even if they're just sometimes supposed to be there for humorous purposes, they do actually help a lot. If you haven't participated in Ludum Dare before, it's kind of hard to figure out how large your scope is possible in the limited time span. So I would just recommend to try to limit your scope as much as possible if it's your first Ludum Dare and you don't know what you can complete in a short amount of time, because it's better to have a game that's too small than a game that's completely unfinished and buggy mess. So here's my game from last year that demonstrates some of the principles I was talking about. So it's a simple platformer game, but what I did is I added a slight twist. So when you die, you're presented with power-ups and power-downs that you have to choose between. So on the left you have one option, on the right you have another option. And the reason why this is a strategy I say to go with is what I can do is I can add a few power-ups in my original plan and add them right into my game. But once I've added those in, I can continue thinking of new power-ups and new ideas to add into the game, meaning I never run out of ideas for my game, and if I don't end up completing everything I originally envisioned, I still have something that is workable and playable, since there are still some of the power-ups in there. This has worked for me in a lot of my Ludum Dares, and I feel is a viable strategy if you don't know how much time you're going to really have in the competition. Your work is not over when the submission hour ends. The competition now moves on to the rating phase. In the rating phase, everyone rates each other's games to try to determine who is the winner of Ludum Dare. Coolness is a nickname for the balance between the amount of ratings you have given to others versus the amount of ratings others have given to you. On the site, there's also something called Smart Balance and Classic Balance. Classic Balance is the balance between the amount of ratings you have given versus the amount of ratings others have given to you. And the Smart Balance is a similar system, but it also uses the amount of feedback you have given in the form of comments to determine your score. On the front page, there will be a list of games that need ratings the most. To appear higher on the list on the front page and get more ratings, you want to have a higher Smart Balance. This means rating other people's games and giving them feedback. Your balance goes down when others rate you, making you get around the same amount of ratings as you have given out. So you want to make sure you give out just as many as you want to receive. Smart Balance is a little different than the Classic Balance because it takes into account the feedback you give in comments, and it looks at the amount of likes you've received on your comment. This means you will get more ratings when you leave better feedback and when others like your feedback more. You need to rate around 20 games to get a final rating in every category. Make sure to rate games because many people forget this step and end up with not being able to have a rating at the end of the competition. Please don't just spam the front page with links asking for more ratings because you're running out of ratings. Just rate others' games and you will appear higher on the front page. So here's another section of the rules that a lot of people get confused about. So this is about changing your game once you've submitted. The rules here state that if you have bug fixes, like very small changes, then you can fix them and upload it as a feature if you highlight the changes you make. That doesn't mean you can add any new features. Your game should be identical. However, you can add small bug fixes. However, I think this rule is a little misinterpreted by people. So at the bottom here, I have the exact description from the old site. So maybe not the official ruling, but this explains why this rule exists. This rule is there so that if you made a small little typo, or just because you were doing debug settings, you accidentally left a debug setting on and it ruins the whole game, or you accidentally made a setting that makes the entire game crash on someone's computer, you can fix that and upload it. It doesn't mean you can make your game completely unbuggy, completely polished. It just means you can fix those small issues you would have noticed if you had more sleep or had more time to fix it up. And for porting, though, that can happen after the initial 48 hours. So like with engines nowadays, that just means exporting to different platforms and changing a few lines of code. But in theory, it means you can port to any platform, whether that means you have to add tons of code or not. And the submission hour is another important thing to consider. You get 1 hour at the end of the competition to submit. So you can keep working exactly to the end of the deadline. And then once the end of the deadline is happening, you can start your submission. So if you think the upload's going to take a half hour, then you can still wait until the end of the time limit and then just start the upload during the submission hour, and it's fine. Another important thing to note is content generators such as sound effects generators or music generators are completely allowed, and so many people use them. They're a great tool. I suggest using them. Sound effects generators are so useful. SFXR, for example, was made specifically for Ludum Dare. And you are allowed to use a logo screen if you want that's made before the Ludum Dare time period. And this derivative works is an important thing to read over if you are concerned about that. But another thing I want to remind people is you can't upload your game to the Ludum Dare website. You'll have to upload it to another site such as itch.io, Google Drive, Dropbox, or something like that. People prefer if you upload it to a site where you can just download it instantly. You just click the download button and it downloads instead of having to go through CAPTCHAs and stuff. And people definitely don't like when sites like Mediafire or those type of sites are used because those have tons of ads and they're a pain to use. So it's best if you can just use a simple site like Dropbox, Google Drive, or itch.io to upload your game. Throughout the competition, you can make posts on the Ludum Dare website about your progress. You can ask other developers about what they're doing, or if you do have real issues, you can make posts on the site about that as well. Or if that is not real time enough for you, you could always go on the Ludum Dare IRC or even the unofficial Ludum Dare Discord, which exists now. These are very useful for getting help and for just seeing how the whole community is. In conclusion, you want to make something feasible, try to have something submittable in the first section of the competition. You want to make sure to rate other people's games so your game actually gets a rating at the end of the competition. And remember, you can go right until submission hour and you get a whole other hour right after the end of the competition to submit. So you can go right up to the beginning of submission hour. And if you are doing compo, you can always continue into the jam if necessary. I have done that a few times where I have aimed for compo but missed the deadline. So don't give up just because you missed the compo deadline. You can still try for the jam deadline. But most importantly, you want to have fun and learn something in this competition. So, good luck this weekend. Hopefully you can make something and get something done. I will be attempting to complete Ludum Dare while at a robotics competition, but hopefully that works out. And thank you for listening to this keynote. And on the topic of the first robotics competition, I have now prepared a parody of their competition announcement video themed for Ludum Dare that we'll play right now. Welcome to the Ludum Dare 44 game competition, and hopefully the theme is not snowman. Over 3,000 teams and participants race to complete a game by creating art, creating code, creating sound, and creating music, all in only 48 or 72 hours. Each participant gets one theme, limited hours, and unlimited possibility. Community help is available by posting on Ludum Dare or participating in this community. Help is also available through watching streams or joining chat groups. Participants start by receiving a theme and making some ideas. Participants may also choose to prepare their work environments beforehand. During the first few hours of each event, participants should be trying to brainstorm several ideas. So participants can then start working on their idea right away. But of course, that might not happen. Participants can earn ratings by rating others, getting promoted higher on the homepage because of this. Participants without enough ratings do not get a score. As development continues, participants may start disliking their idea and have to completely restart. Participants hopefully succeed in getting something done over the course of the time period. At the end of the event, participants can use the extra submission hour to package up and submit their game without using up their precious time. The game with the best rating wins the competition.
That's all, folks.